Having some issues here. Here we go. Should be live now. There we are. We're live now. Live now. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Astropub. Welcome to the office hours. Let's bring you guys into the office, shall we? Had some weird audio issues to start with, but welcome, everybody. Welcome to the office hours. So, office hours are a little bit of a difference for those of you guys who are first watching this. This is live on stream. I'm live streaming to Twitch and to YouTube at the same time. So if you're watching this later on YouTube, these longer ones, just know that this is more of a me kind of hanging out, talking about lore, talking about the game and where those two collide usually. So as you can tell with 312 going live, there's actually some final crossovers. So today we're going to talk about INS Jericho. What does it mean? What they call Assault on Stanton patch, which is what 312 is called. So we'll talk about that and how INS Jericho might play into that. Then we're also going to do a review, kind of a video watching of Reunion. I'm going to be recording that for YouTube as well, just, separately, so that I'll release that as a separate video for people who don't want to watch the whole live stream as my analysis. I will be doing some lore analysis as well as some critique. But how you guys doing today? Welcome, Scape, Rossoff, Scott C, Grim Gopher, Bandist, CGF Mash, thanks for the Twitch Prime sub for 18 months. Carm4, welcome, man. Your FPS went down to 10 in Loreville? Not surprising. Thank you for subbing there, GR. I saw that with the Prime sub. Thank you, man. Since we blow them up, yeah. So, this is normal. For those of you who are newer to Star Citizen, this sadly, 312 being released in a less than ideal state is normal. It's pretty bog standard for CIG to do this. It's just because they have like not a quota, but like a time frame they gotta meet. Because unlike other patches where they can wait, they gotta get it done before they go on break, because they go on break for 2 weeks. So, and it's not saying that everyone's gone for those 2 weeks. It's just that those are the 2 weeks that most people have vacation time. They give that time off for people. Then if people want to stick, I don't know if it's voluntary or not, but it might be. Camrat, thank you, Camrat. Oh, because it's the 4. Yeah. Thank you, Toshiro. It's gonna be we're not gonna do gameplay today. Love you, Utho, but holy shit, your songs are too epic. So yeah, let's get started by discussing INS Jericho. So for those of you who are out of the loop, 312 adds a new station which you can find, but doesn't show up on maps, called INS Jericho. You can't jump to it, but you can fly to it. I think Grimhex, or I think Jumptown. It's only about 2 kilometers away from, I think it's like only 2 kilometers away from something. It's not very far away from another location, so it's not too bad. But it is from the regalia that people have seen, it is a UEE naval station, and it's called Jericho. INS Jericho. So, this 100% has to do with the XenoThreat. And I'll explain why in a second. So first off, I've explained this many times, and I have to do a video on XenoThreat before the XenoThreat attacks start, so I might be working late tomorrow putting that together before we go live for our usual kind of co-op streams on Friday. So, XenoThreat. What we understand in the lore about XenoThreat is that they are headquartered out of Pyro. And they, being headquartered out of Pyro, they are not just like a gang in Pyro. There are many gangs in Pyro. They are the gang in Pyro. So they have the most power out of any of the other gangs. They control the only landing zone in Stanton called Ruin Station. Find a good stuff here. Of course, it does a reinstall. By the way, is the audio quality okay, chat? You guys good? Here we go. Any news on the 400i? No. No news on the 400i. Took you 2 hours to get off Microtech? I don't doubt it. How was it discovered? I don't know. I really don't know. Hey, Alphamon, how you doing, buddy? Audio's good? Awesome. Hey, Phantom. Let me continue on with XenoThreat. XenoThreat are the rulers of Ruin Station and the controllers of the Pyro system. Now, to understand XenoThreat, you have to understand a couple things. First of all, XenoThreat are... They're to say they're xenophobic is to really, really undersell who they are. They are a fascistic... They're a fascist. Not fascistic. They're fascists. They're military extremist fascists who hate aliens and believe in conspiracy theories that aliens have infiltrated all of humankind. That anyone who's even touched by aliens is bad. So, the top echelons of XenoThreat are also mostly military, ex-military, whereas the bottom are just kind of brainwashed thugs. So, the upper levels actually have some training, but they're mostly just a force of, like, bodies. So, being in the Pyro system and connected to Stanton means that they pose a threat. They don't just pose a threat to the UEE, they pose a threat to the gangs inside the Stanton system. So let's break down where Stanton is in the UEE to understand a little bit better. Stanton, let me pull up. I'll do a good thing. I'll actually use visuals. Everyone complains that I don't use visuals enough when we talk about like spatial areas because it's really hard for the people to kind of get in their minds what the universe looks like, and I get that. It's just hard to because there's not a lot of easy visuals to use for Star Citizen at the moment. All right. And sadly, it only works on. Okay, let's go to the presentation. All right, so we're gonna go from Sol to Terra. So, start off from Sol to Davian. From Davian to Killian. From Killian to Ellis. From Ellis to Ellis to Magnus. Magnus to Stanton. Stanton to Terra. Let's see if I can't get go with large jump points. So, if you want to go from Terra, or from Sol, to Terra, using large jump points, one of the major routes to do so is the Stanton system. The Stanton system being at the very end of that route to Terra. So Stanton, when it was discovered in the 30th century, it was discovered in the 29th century. In the mid 29th century, was a huge find. Or late 29th century, new lore, they've revised it a little bit. So it was discovered sometime in the 29th century. It was a huge find because it allowed for, before this, the only way you were going to go between Sol and Terra with large jump points means you had to go pretty much all over. You had to go from Sol to Croshaw to Redder to Idris, through Garen, Banshee, Fora, Nemo, Hades, Nexus, Ellis, Magnus. No, and even that. It was impossible. It was impossible to jump from these two systems according to their current map. Yeah, it was impossible to jump between those two systems with large jump points. That's huge. That means you couldn't get heavy, large transports and capital ships necessarily easily from those two places. So Stanton is crucial. It is the linchpin for trade and economy. It's Davian is the gateway to the east. Stanton's the gateway to the west. Davian's often called the gateway to the east, if you guys watch the latest lore video. So I just want to help you understand, like, this is the positioning of the systems in terms of what we're talking about. So Stanton was sold off to corporations because the UEE didn't want to have to constantly monitor it, but it makes sense that the UEE would have some sort of presence in the Stanton system, just because it is a major trade lane. This is the, there's a strait in the Middle East, I can't remember the name of it, which is just like one of the most trafficked locations in the world. And it's always a place where there's high pirate activity. And so it's one of those places where you'll see like the US and Russia and China and like every major corporate country in the world, even countries that hate each other, do pirate operations at a region because they have to. And not the Suez Canal, it's like right below the Suez Canal. The Strait of Hormuz, yeah, I think it's what it is, the Strait of Hormuz. So this is a huge area. And just like the Strait of Hormuz is right next to fucking Somalia, where most of the pirates who will raid these places come from, Stanton is right next to Pyro. With a medium jump point, I believe. Yeah, medium jump point right here. So there is a military presence in Stanton. We haven't seen it before, but it makes sense that INS Jericho would be that presence. There is an active location where you can get smaller capital ships through with the medium jump point to Pyro. So what XenoThreat is going to do, because XenoThreat is definitely going to be invading Stanton system. We know that. That's what the message is. The Garbled message from a year ago and showed up again recently. With XenoThreat invading Stanton, the reason why is because they want to disrupt trade between the East and the West. Terra, which is the Eastern Empire, is also the one that has the most heavy influence with... it's most heavily influenced by the Xi'an. So you've got the Eastern Empire, which is heavily like kind of dipped in alien stuff. Because not only do you have the Xi'an, I believe you also have the Banu tend to be in that region as well. Yeah, it's also the where you find a lot of the Banu systems. Think. Sort of. Bacchus and those areas are sort of in that region. They're more west, but... so, what Pyro... And plus you've got, like, this huge corporation region. So, what XenoThreat is doing is more than just attacking Stanton, they're trying to cut off the two sides of the Empire. They're trying to sever the link between the two. Now, the military is mostly on the Vanduul front. So the military would take some time to be able to get back to Stanton to any kind of major threat. However, players are in Stanton, so it makes sense that players would have to take over, would step in. Now, the CDF was 100% activated and created because of this event that's about to happen, but the CDF in lore, the Civilian Defense Force, is an emergency measure that the advocacy will introduce to basically give citizens and non-military personnel, civilians and citizens and non-military personnel, and non-advocacy personnel, essentially deputizes them into the advocacy to allow them to operate within some rights, so they get to do things like ghost criminals for money. And it's only done in the very extreme cases. And Stanton has been experiencing a crime wave that was made worse by the Jumptown Wars. And so you've got this huge expansion of criminal activity in Stanton. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if some of this criminal activity was intentionally sparked by XenoThreat, because they want to cause chaos. So you've got the CDF being activated in Stanton. You've got a military station which is set there to defend the region. And you've got a paramilitary organization that wants to destroy the government that also happens to have paramilitary equipment like Idris's. Jericho is the target. Now, before this, I was 100% certain that both Alasar and more so Orison was the target, because those make sense, because Orison has large shipyards which build large ships, which would make sense for refitting and repairing those large ships. And with Orison being a gas giant, and there's the major dockyard in orbit, Alasar is a good place to start if you want to control traffic in and out of Orison, I guess is what they call it now. Then you conquer that area. So that would make sense at that time. This was before they added INS Jericho. So the only reason why INS Jericho exists in-game is to have a spot where XenoThreat would take over, because it would be a place where you could refit and refuel capital-sized ships. It's also a large military base, which would mean that there's military supplies there, which would allow them to refit and repair their military vessels, as well as get more weapons and armor and equipment that are military grade for them to use. So, I'm saying Jericho is a prop. It's a giant stand-in. It's a giant set piece for you to fight over with XenoThreat. Oh yeah, the Jumptown Wars were nuts. Well, you can already, you don't have advocacy show up as mission points. You already have access to advocacy to the CDF with the Call to Arms missions. The Call to Arms missions is you essentially enrolling in the CDF. So if you accepted a Call to Arms missions, congratulations, you've been deputized. I've seen the videos, Phantom. Jericho has active cannons. Ask me how I know. Because they shot you. And blew you up. So it is called Straight from Moves. Yeah. It doesn't look like you can jump between Stanton and Pyro on the map. Yeah, medium. Yeah. Asher, do you think the conclusion of the XenoThreat we may gain entry into Pyro? Yes. Now, I think what's likely going to happen is CIG has also said that they're doing dynamic events. That's one of the announcements they made with the release of 3.12, was that they're going to be doing dynamic events in the universe. And obviously, XenoThreat is that dynamic event. Now, what that means is that likely these events will happen randomly on a server that you're on, and you'll be able to deal with it. CIG can track these, though. So I'm assuming that these attacks will be continuous until Pyro opens up. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a counterattack mission at that point where CIG is basically going to say, hey, yeah, go kill some XenoThreat, in their home turf. A kind of a counter invasion, if you will. So, player-driven gameplay that came from was great. Yeah, the Jumptown Wars. I'm glad that they're finally seeming to recognize that the player-driven gameplay is good. Well, you can also fight Idrises with the Arlington missions. The Arlington mission now has an Idris in it, so that was always intended to be the end goal, was killing the Idris for the Arlingtons. But you can also do it by that's the legal way of doing it. The illegal way of doing it is just getting the advocacy to bring in an Idris. Well, I guess it's a Navy Idris because it's not an Idris P, it's an Idris N. Yeah, the only problem with the Jumptown Wars in terms of their implementation was there wasn't a lot of reward for stopping players from trading, other than you stop players from trading. That's about it. So yeah. Are there any Vanduul that are friendly to the UE? No, there are no friendly Vanduul to the UEE. There are some, at least non-hostile Vanduul clans that trade with the Banu. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're friendly to the Banu. It could mean that those clans are smaller and the Banu are very good at negotiating, so they were able to get them to agree to terms and that kind of thing. We don't know. The thing about the Vanduul is that the Vanduul are a scattered nomadic species that are based off of clans, and none of the clans really like each other. As far as we can tell, there's no real unity. They just kind of get together and mess stuff up. So, think of the Vanduul as a combination of Scandinavian Vikings. And by the way, guys, historical fact, Viking is not the name of all Scandinavians. Viking is an occupation. It's a job, like pirate or outlaw. A Viking is a term for a raider. So we often call them the Vikings, which is usually correct when they're raiding. But the Scandinavian invasion, like the Danish invasion of England later, was not a Viking raid. That was an invasion. That's why they called them the Norse or the Danes often. Well, we don't know about okay, so I'll read it off. But they are nomadic, so that contract only holds with some of the Vanduul. Yeah, exactly. It's only for some of the Vanduul, but just because the Vanduul seem to have some semblance of honor, I've always seen the Vanduul as less of a Klingon analog and more as a Cardassian analog in terms of Star Trek references. They are not honorable warriors. They are honorable warriors amongst one another, but yeah, fuck everybody else, kind of thing. So, has anybody learned how the Vanduul developed their tech? No, there's been some discussion about it, but it's mostly like from their language. A lot of the lore that you want to find about like tech and society and that kind of stuff comes from the language guides. And there was a couple videos on like the creation of the Vanduul script and how they wrote, and it was some discussion about how the fact they only have 3 fingers would like they would scratch and like in dirt for writing at first, or in clay, and so that would impact how they wrote, was just their fingers. So my assumption is probably through conflict and through scavenging. Do cyborg Vanduul exist in Star Citizen? We don't know, but likely not. The Vanduul are naturally armored, possibly even naturally resistant to vacuum. They may not need spacesuits to go out into vacuum. They may still have some sort of like rebreathers or something like that, but their body is actually naturally armored against defense. So when a Vanduul goes into combat, when they're a young Vanduul warrior, when they're just starting out, they'll wear armor. But once they've gotten experience, they would start taking armor off. So a veteran Vanduul, like a Vanduul clan leader, would be naked entirely because their bodies are armor. So. Thank you, Ben. Exactly, yeah. Until the Vanduul get their own Genghis Khan to unite the clans and watch out, or Attila. Thank you, Kat. Thanks for watching. If Vandal lose in arms, do they fix their bodies? They probably do, but I don't know enough about biology to not say that perhaps they just regrow it. You know, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities that the Banu just regrow their limbs. So let me continue on with this discussion about the attack that's coming to Stanton and why you will not, and this is you will not be able to fight on the side of XenoThreat. And here's why. XenoThreat is a drug manufacturer. That is their main source of income. That is how they make money, by creating drugs using the old terraforming labs that were on Ruin Station. They've converted them to drug laboratories. So they've got a ton of drugs, but that's about it. So one of the things that XenoThreat is likely going to be doing is attacking local gangs and syndicates because they're their rivals in the drug market. So nobody in Stanton likes XenoThreat. They are very, very much not sympathetic people in the eyes of the folks in Stanton. Everybody in Stanton hates them. So you will likely not be able to side with XenoThreat. You will likely... The best you could do is help them, but they'll still shoot at you. And all you'll be doing is ruining your reputation so that it'll be harder for you to get into jobs from anybody. Vandal takes slaves, right? We don't know. All we know is there was one... In lore, there is one person who was captured by the Vanduul who disappeared during the initial raid. We don't know if they were captured as a slave, as a prisoner, to get information. We don't know what they were. But we do know that the Vanduul do take prisoners. We don't know if they enslave the prisoners. They may just kill them. Banu take slaves, yes. But the Banu slaves is more like indentured servitude, and it's a little bit more complicated. Generally speaking, it's illegal for them to... hey, 2 months. Thank you so much there, Rabbit Crab. It's illegal for a Banu to enslave somebody without their consent, which sounds weird, consenting slavery. It's more like indentured servitude. It's one of the reasons why I don't sign any documents while you're drunk. Don't drink any strange liquids in a Banu system, and don't sign any documents in the same Banu system without having somebody look it over. Because you can, in fact, if you sign a contract and you agree to the contract and you do not fulfill the contract, you may have to work as a slave, essentially. Freemus, thank you so much for that. Again, Rapid Crab. Do you think the Vanduul will be something that the player base has to worry about pushing human-controlled systems, much like the Thargoids and ED? And does the XenoThreat stuff is testing that tech? 100%. XenoThreat is taking the place of a Vanduul incursion. But they're also an actual real-life lore, like in-fiction lore faction that exists. So I have a feeling that eventually you'll be able to gain reputation with them when you go to the Pyro system. Can we leave a prisoner in one of those pods and set it up as a wall decoration and hab? As far as I understand, you might be able to do that, but the prisoner will have the option to just essentially give in and just get fast travel to prison. Oh, God, Max. Judging from the Vandal teeth, they look like carnivorous, so missing people might just end up as lunch. Possibly. Yeah. I need lore books for my captain's quarters. I hope they put them in the Vine. Yeah, well, there's Arc. It'd be interesting if you could buy documents like that, but it'd be a lot of work. Not related to the topic, but just watch the reunion. Do you have any info on Alex Dugan and Mass? Yes, we're going to talk about that. We're going to do like a quick... I'm going to do a analysis breakdown video of the second part of it. But I actually did a video, Big Stinky. I did a video on the first instance of Maz and Dugan in lore, with a lore piece that was written for them during the concept sale of the Crusader Mercury Star Runner. Which is I told their story on a video, which is a Galactic story video, which is called The Most Infamous Star Runner. It's on the video. It's in the YouTube. So I'm plugging my YouTube. By the way, y'all, we are 7,800 people have subscribed to YouTube, which is nuts. And on Twitch, we are like less than 100 people away from 12,500. So, y'all. I will say, like, CIG's route of keeping alien tech to a rarity. Tavaran are broken and ruined all their tech in war. The Banu literally don't keep records of anything. And we were in a Cold War with the Xi'an for hundreds of years. The Vandal just pissed off and kill us. Exactly. Though, to be fair, in reality, all human shield technology that is subcapital, and actually probably all human shield technology today, is a Tavaran shield tech. Because humans use Tavaran shield tech and then reverse engineered a lot of that stuff for things like shields on fighters and subcapital ships, as well as what are called air shields, which is a uniquely Tavaran invention that humanity adopted after the Tavaran Wars, because we stole it. Oh, okay, yeah, Phantom, I didn't see your question. So if Xeno's endgame is mass genocide, how is cutting off Soul and Terra factor into that? Economic chaos. If XenoThreat can get a foothold in the Stanton system, they can attack and raid any cargo or any communications that are going between Soul and Terra. And being that that's the main thoroughfare for probably most of the information and military from the Western and Eastern empires, it's the only large jump point route between the East and the West. Stanton is one of those places that is a literal choke point, because it is the only large jump point into Terra. There are some smaller, or there's other large jump points that go into Terra, but most of them do not start from Sol or even near Sol. So the end goal of XenoThreat is tactically cutting off the head of the snake. Because XenoThreat, in their minds, believes if they can do this, which is possible, but this is John Brown levels of insanity, that perhaps if they're able to do this, they can inspire others to join them in their cause to overthrow the UEE and install a xenophobic dictator. Basically, they want to return to the Mezzer era, but, with more genocide. So that's their end goal, which, again, makes sense. The UEE is currently fighting a protracted war with the Vandal, and if they're able to strike hard, strike fast, and get in and conquer at least INS Jericho, it becomes easier for them to raid out and or take other regions of Stanton. which then, by the time the UEE could formulate a formal response with a fleet to come in there, by that time it may be already too late. They're dug in like ticks, impossible to get out, control multiple landing zones. It would be a war of attrition. And the UEE is currently fighting and has fought a war of attrition with outlaws in the Nexus system, and it is brutal and bloody. It is absolutely atrocious, and nobody likes it. So essentially, they're counting on getting in, digging in, and then making it too costly for the UEE to win. It did not end nicely for John Brown, no. But that's why I'm saying it's John Brown levels of insanity, because I don't think there's any end game in reality. I don't think they could do that, because there's already too much local resistance for them to be able to function. It is a doomed raid. Their attempts are going to be doomed no matter what happens. It's just that players, it gives an excuse for players to just kind of mess stuff up. And like I said, historically, it makes sense. Tactically, it kind of makes sense. And historically, there's lots of examples of that kind of attack being done for hopes and dreams, which never really showed up. So, do you think we have a city in Star Citizen worlds, kind of like utopic cyberpunk, where corporations are so powerful with advanced tech, it looks like Cyberpunk 2077? Yeah, it's called ArcCorp. The entire planet. Oh, ArcCorp and look, New Babbage and function? Probably not. I mean, that's what Stanton is. Like, Stanton is Night City. It's the embodiment of Night City. From the corrupt politicians and corporations and like the Badlands with things like Hurston, to the hyper advanced technological advances, and like, you know, in the upper echelon of Night City, the super rich locations of with like Microtech, the sprawling urban landscape of ArcCorp, with the the punctuated like exotic locales and beauty of places in Night City, which is similar to Orison. That's essentially what Stanton was supposed to be. It's a cyberpunk. It's the cyberpunk system. That's what it was designed to be. Chumbaloda. Yeah. Chumbata, yeah. A full invasion of Stanton would take years. They're making bold moves, and I'm sure that other gangs could join. A CDF response would be too great for them to continue. That's essentially what the players are. The players are the representation of the CDF responding to the violence. The advocacy, just basically deputizing anybody who has a gun to go stop them before they can get there, because they're pretty well equipped. We're not talking about rank amateurs. We're not talking about the Nine Tails. You know, we're not talking about a bunch of punks with guns. We're talking about a paramilitary organization with active, like, a lot of firepower. CDF, not EDF. CDF, the Civilian Defense Force. Too busy with Cyberpunk. Get into the Expanse. Season 5 is amazing. I love it so far. The first 3 episodes are better than the entirety of Season 4, and Season 4 was pretty good for it being the weakest of the novels, based off the weakest of the novels. And I would say that this is already the best season that Cyberpunk, that The Expanse has ever had. The choke point explains why Stanton's system was so important to the UEE, so they maintained it at a loss until the companies took over, manning it with UEE oversight. Exactly, Richard. That is exactly the reason why they maintained it at a loss, was because it was such an important system to find, especially in the depression of the 29th century. At the end of the 28th century, the Meser era came to an end. And there was a lot of conflict and chaos during the anti-Mez revolution. And when humanity came out of the anti-Mez revolution, there was many of the corporations that controlled, that were active in the UEE at that time collapsed, including all the heavy freight organizations. So there was this period of transition where there was an economic slump because, companies collapsed because they were run by Mezzers. And so those people who worked for those companies no longer had jobs, which means they needed money and there was no companies to replace them. This is the reason why Crusader, MISC, and Argo, Argo and I want to say... Yeah, those are the reason why those three companies exist today, is because that depression spawned all these startups, which would then take over. So the discovery of the Stanton system comes at the point where the UEE is starting to climb itself out of an economic depression, and now suddenly Stanton is discovered, which is like, hey, boom of trade, faster trade between East and West. This is a good thing. But it's expensive and nobody wants to expand. No one wants to settle it because they're in the middle of a several century slump and settlement because, again, conflicts and uncertainty that had happened during the fall of the Mezzer era, ain't nobody looking to uproot themselves and move somewhere else if the economy is terrible. Because there's no chance that they're going to be able to do it. So that's why they sold it to the corporations who now control the Stanton system. It was a cost-cutting measure while still maintaining control. I don't think you'll ever be able to visit the bottom of ArcCorp now. That would be its own game. That would be Cyberpunk. Any lore showing the strife throughout the Empire that would allow for groups like XenoThreat to gain support? Most of the population of the UE appears happy. Yeah. It's complicated. So, to illustrate a point, this is going to be a content warning for people who are watching this in YouTube live. This is for you who are watching this live, content warning. For those of you who are watching this later, content warning from going here forward. Violence, xenophobia, terrorism, murder, suicide, that kind of thing. So, the Mezzer era was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Conditions were appalling. They only got worse. The standard life of your average citizen was much worse in the Mezzer era than they were before. And the atrocities that were committed by the Mezzers are uncountable. We're talking mega genocide. Essentially, towards the end of the Mezzer regime, if you even decided to not live in the UEE, if you're expatriates, you're living in some sort of independent colony somewhere else that's not in UEE-controlled space, you're fair game. Not just you're fair game, but they could literally blow up the moon or planet you're on. Just wipe out all life on that planet with antimatter. They almost did it several times. We're talking massive amounts. And to illustrate this point, let me talk about Anthony Tanaka. So if you look at the statue of Anthony Tanaka in Elevsky, which is itself a communist commune. It is a communist commune, a worker-controlled commune, which is anti-government, even in the modern UEE. The statue of Anthony Tanaka is in reference to an actual child, 12 years old, who was killed for refusing to work. So Magnus in the mid-28th century was Magnus is a shithole, but Magnus in the mid 28th century was 8th century was a hellhole. It was mostly controlled by the military because it was where most of the military munitions and armor and weapons came from. So it might be designed by a company like Behring, but then Behring would have plants or would have subcontracts with companies on Magnus who would then produce that those military equipment specifically for the military. So Magnus didn't have a governor. They didn't have elected representation. It was all essentially forced upon them by the government. So the administrator of the Magnus system, was the cousin of the emperor, and there was some efficiency problems. So on top of like the government controlling this, under the Measures, they loosened restrictions on child labor and on a lot of things. So, for instance, let's just drill down on child labor. Child labor, it was legal for children to work at the age of 7, and it was legal for companies to hire children, like orphans, to work in their factories at 7, pay them basically slave labor wages, and house them but charge for their room and board. So essentially slaves, to enslave children to work for them. And under the later Measures, they would originally they only had to work 6 days a week, and they had 1 day off for technically education. But the later Measures would remove that and then increase the hours from 12-hour days to 16-hour days. And this was all created by the Advocacy. This was all administered by the Advocacy, a group of advocacy police officers, federal police officers, essentially in UE lore, who were called the Guard. And so the Guard were the ones who were running Magnus's plants and ensuring efficiency and stuff like that. So Anthony started working when he was 7. He lived in a barracks with 50 other kids. And by the time he was 12, he was a veteran at what he was doing. What they hired children to do was to clean out areas where, like exhaust ports and other things that were from factories, munitions factories. So their job was to go in and clean out materials to make sure that you had higher efficiency. So, December 3rd, 2759, I want to say, 57. I'd have to look it up, the details. But now it's December 3rd, mid-28th century. Anthony Tanaka gets off a 16-hour shift. His supervisor says, you got to go back in. One of your coworkers went into anaphylactic shock because of exposure to some chemicals, and we need you to pick up the shift. Anthony snapped, and he started stamping his feet and screaming just no, 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 over and over again in the middle of the factory floor, causing a big ruckus. So in response, a guard, a member of the Guard, the Advocacy, pulled out a pistol and shot the kid dead point blank in front of everybody. This was recorded on footage, and the security footage of this event was leaked to the Empire. So when you ask for things like how could things be so bad in the UEE with, everyone seems to be happy, that was only 200 years ago. And yes, they overthrew the Measures because of stuff like that, but things didn't get better after the Measures left, because fundamentally the UEE is the same thing as it was under the Measures, only with some democracy paint toss on top of it. There's really not a lot of reforms that have been done. They tried to do deep structural reforms to the UEE and change the name of the UEE to the Democratic Stellar Union, or the DSU. But part of that plan was to move the capital to Terra, and everyone on Earth lost their goddamn minds. So that didn't work. Some of the reforms were implemented, but not everything. There's still a lot of pro-Measure, anti-alien sentiment. A lot of people blame aliens for things like unemployment and for things getting not really better under the new UEE. So there's an entire subclass of people who go flee to Nix and to Levski, who just don't see improvements in the government. So they live outside the law, outlaws. So that's a long way of explaining it. But I've been doing a lot of research into the last measures, the last day, I'm kind of doing kind of like the last days of Hitler's Europe, but the last days of Measures UEE kind of documentary thing for Galactic historians. So I'm in the middle of kind of researching that and writing it. And I cannot underscore the impact of people like Anthony Tanaka on the history of the UEE. I want to fall in love with a foreign wife and then fry. Ouch. Ouch. Hey, Black to Burn, how you doing, buddy? The unfortunate moment when XenoThreat discover how ships really, how many ships really have. Are there any of the measures left in current days, or they're all gone? Here's the thing, and that's one of the videos I'm going to be doing here in the future, is Lydia Measure is technically the last Measure. Her brother, Linton Measure, was a Measure the 11th. He was killed in office. He was actually, as far as I can tell, gunned down in the Imperial Palace in a gunfight at the end of the Measure Revolution, which was apparently like spearheaded by Aaron Toy, who became the Imperator. Because remember, we live in a universe. We live in a universe. Star Citizen is in a universe. Is a universe where everyone who's in politics or anyone who has like a corporation, they all served in the military. So like you take a look at like Silas Kerner, who's, space Elon Musk. He was in the military. He's 100% was in the military. I don't know what he did in the military, but he's a citizen, so he had to have been in the military. Now, likely you don't have to be in the military to be a citizen, because there are some things you can do, which possibly would happen, but people like Silas Kerner would not go into the military. It's that, doesn't matter how powerful you are. It's more of like tradition, because it's important, that kind of thing. Thank you for that $5 there, Brandon. Super chat. Love the content. Keep up the good work. Thank you, my man. It would be fascinating to see CIG video series on the downfall of the measures transpired. Yeah. Don't laugh about my future Tavaran wife. Aaron Toy loves it. Oh, no. Aaron, E-R-I-N. Toy, T-O-I. That's how you spell her name. We need handcuffs in game. There are handcuffs, not yet, but they're definitely planning on being it. We like rich assholes in Star Citizen universe, single person owning a fleet of ships and just running around doing whatever. We're running drugs, blowing military stuff like that. You're not really rich though in the Star Citizen universe. Like players at the best are upper middle class in terms of their even with fleets of ships. We're talking like the rich in the Star Citizen universe own planets. The type that get doing used. And the type you can buy at the Hab desk. Ooh, spicy. The pink ones in the Habs? Yeah. Well, there's actually, like, you could get, like, handcuffs that you get with the original Cutlass Blue package had a stun stick and handcuffs. So. That's something that CIG is definitely working on. The idea of being able to subdue and then bring in bounties. That's definitely something they seem to be wanting to work on with the moves that they've been making towards things like knockdowns and status system, and it just seems to be looking like that. With a feather chest. Do I think the advocacy should have agents within XenoThreat? If so, what intel would the UEN have on them? I don't know if the advocacy shares its intelligence with the UEN. You gotta remember the advocacy is kind of like the FBI or the Marshal Service, mixed with like the court system. They're both the law enforcement and law interpretation branch of the UEE. And the Navy is a separate branch. It is it is. There are 3 branches of government in the UEE. There's the Congress, there's the advocacy, there's the Senate, the advocacy, and the military. They're a 3rd branch of government. So they technically there's like the Congress technically has like oversight over the military, but only on spending. So that's their check on the military, but the military has it's essentially its own independent force that does not have to talk with the advocacy. But the advocacy likely does have spies, if not informants, within the XenoThreat, which is why the information is probably coming out. Yeah, the advocacy was basically the Gestapo during World War II, but now they're more like the FBI. They were formed as more like the Marshal Service or Interpol. I wouldn't be surprised if the origins of the advocacy and lore is that they stemmed from Interpol originally and then just became the more formalized services afterwards. Yeah, they're kind of like Spectres from Mass Effect. That's probably the best comparison is if you play Mass Effect is the Spectres. They're only answerable to themselves. Question, which system is the Astropub going to open up in? All of them, because it's going to be mobile. Which player avatars are higher status in their respective game, Eve or Star Citizen? I don't really know a lot about Eve's status of Capsuleers. I don't know what Capsuleers are in terms of the socioeconomic class of I assume that they're higher class in Eve than they are in Star Citizen because you have a lot more control. Capsuleers have a lot more control over, the market than Star Citizens will, than a Citizen will. And yeah, so I assume that Capsuleers are the rich, whereas in Star Citizen, these citizens are mostly middle class. You don't have nearly the same kind of resources that, say, ArcCorp has. I mean, we're talking about XenoThreat having Idrises, yes. But the question becomes, how many Idrises and when and where? Likely, I'm assuming that we know that XenoThreat will have Idrises. I'm assuming that those Idrises are also not well-equipped comparatively, but also a surprise. They weren't known about, really, at the time. That's a small fry. You can't pull your Idris out now, though, Toshiro. Air the Pub will be on a capital ship or travel system to system bringing booze. Yeah, basically, it's not a capital ship. It would probably be something like a 600i going from system to system. All right. So let's do this is going to be a little different because I'm going to pause the music. This is something I did before live, but I wasn't really recorded, I don't think, for YouTube when we did it. So I'm going to be recording this. This is going to be for a YouTube video, so apologies if I just kind of ignore chat for a bit. So sorry about that, chat. But this is going to be my watching and reviewing the reunion part 2 because I did the part 1 already. So we're going to review it. I'm going to analyze some of the lore bits, and we'll watch it. Then I'll go back and look through it with some of the lore bits to get a little bit better understanding. I'm not going to watch the whole thing because it's 9 minutes long. I'm just going to start from where part 1 ended. So let me get the recording started. Hello and welcome back to the Astropub. This is, again, part 2 of something we've already done once. Something that's weird for me because I'm not expecting it, which is the second part of the reunion video released. Now, CIG did the reunion video. They released the reunion video. I think they did some touch-ups and some of the animations here and there. But they released the reunion video as one big video instead of just releasing part 2. So I'm going to be starting from the end of part 1. So if you haven't seen that already, go back. It'll be up there, that little link up there, for you to watch part 1 for some of my analysis and some of my theories, and then come back here and watch this part 2. Talk a little bit more about lore. So before we get started, here I will clear up some misconceptions that happened in the comments from the first one. This is the story of Alex Dugan. They changed what Alex Dugan looked like between the initial story and the current version, just because Alex became more real in this latest one. The person that was mentioned as the co-pilot, saying, "Where's your co-pilot, Maz?" Maz is a brand new. Maz Hulan, I think was his name. Maz Hulan is the co-pilot and co-crew member, partner in crime of Alex Dugan. So that should clear up some of those issues as well. So yeah, so Maz and Dugan are still and this is the belligerent duck. It does have the belligerent duck skin and everything on it. You can see some of the skins. So with that, let's get to watching part 2 here. I'm going to have the volume nice and loud. So we'll watch it first, and then we'll go back and analyze it. So hold on. Let me change up the... There we go. Let's get started.
How much are the deacons paying for me anyway?
You aren't gonna talk your way out of this one, laddie.
I can get you money, you know? Hey, think about it. Pop these cuffs, you and me get back on the duck, and we'll go rob the damn Central Core Bank. Come on, Dugan, it'll be just like old times. Be like we never left Lago. Or not.
My dog! So happy to see you back safe and sound. She's displeased. I can tell. See, normally, when you abandon your crew to be taken by the police, you're not expecting to see them again.
Maybe I could facilitate this reunion. Now, about those advocates.
Ah, yes. The authorization codes. These were not easy to come by. But well worth the trouble.
Codes? You treated me for damn access codes?
You're more than welcome to stick around. See how this all plays out. I can assure you, this will be long and painful. Should be fun.
I really should be,
What's the matter, Dugan? Got another old cohort to sell out? Gonna hit up a Banu slave market or two?
You know what, Zen? Just because we did a few jobs together way back, doesn't mean I owe you anything. The Banu have a word for backstabbers like you. Hi-yi-yi!
Get them! Get off them!
What was that about? You couldn't clue me into your little plan? This way! Not this way! Over there! Cyclone! Hey, it's pretty cozy down here. Watch your port side.
Isn't that your job?
Uh-oh, they brought out the big boy.
Yeah, I see it. Almost there. How about you get these flies off our back?
How about you keep this thing off
Never mind, I got it. Or not. Hit the hatch, I'll get us off the ground. Let's go!
Better get us real high real fast before that ballista does it for us! Incoming!
You got it handled? 50-50?
Turn it, Muddy.
Hold on. You good?
I thought we were toast back there. That was something else, Dugan. I mean, I almost sacked all over the turret, but those were some moves. Dugan?
Got it, Mass. There's no way the Deacon's caught up that fast.
Alex. Been a long time.
Sorry, Liege. I heard you were dead.
Never better. Got a message this morning from an old acquaintance. You will never guess who.
I have a couple of ideas.
Look, Dugan, I didn't know you were gonna spring me from the Deacons.
Yeah, well, to be honest, neither did I. Get in the turret. Give it a 10 count and then unleash hell.
Zen.
Hang in there, Mass, just a little while longer.
All right. So, just want to watch that first so you guys have a good context. Go watch it. Go watch the video. Put the link in the description, all that kind of stuff. But let's go over some of the critique I'll have first off. But we'll go into the analysis here in a second. Everyone's pointed out the Stormtrooper aim, which is, plot armor. And everything else I think is fine. The action scene is fine. It's pretty standard Hollywood fare for action. The problem I think that I have with this technically, and then we'll go into the lore. So I know no one here to see my technical appraisal of it. But one of the things that I have experience with in theater is blocking. And this is something that almost anybody who has been around theater or videography knows about is blocking, which is where you go to what parts do you hit at what time of the footage or whatever. The problem with this was the blocking was terrible. Let's run in a straight line and get shot at and miss, and run at a straight line for a long period of time and have really awkward shots. That scene needed to be tightened up, needed to be a couple seconds shorter, add them moving around a little bit more rather than just running in a straight line, add some more stuff, maybe reduce the number of baddies, maybe have some sort of things between each other. That was my biggest concern. Everything else is fine. The little they hit the wrong button is kind of weird, but it's all right. Now let's talk about the lore. So, let me go back to where we are, and then I'll kind of... I'm not going to watch the whole thing because it's still a long time. But, here we go. Let's go back there. Okay. So, I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit more, and...
I can get you money, you know. Hey, think about it. Pop these cuffs, you and me get back on the duck, and we'll go rob the damn central core bank. Come on, Dugan, it'll be just like a...
Okay, so her mentioning robbing the central core bank is insanity. That's not happening. That's incredibly dangerous. Now, someone like Dugan could do that. She has the skills for it, but she wouldn't do it anyways because that's not her style. And one of the reasons why she's in so much trouble right now is because she took a job in the first edition we saw where they were in conflict with, or they took a job from what it turned out to be an undercover advocacy agent, having them break into Baring's labs to do stuff, which is itself a little weird. But the story beats in this video very much line up with the story beats of Alex Dugan and the belligerent duck in that story. So that's fine.
Times. Be like we never left Lago.
Lago is the first reference to where she's from. I'd have to look up where Lago is, but that is definitely an origin of where she's from.
Or not.
My dog. So
I have no idea who Mad Dog is, but she's apparently named Mad Dog.
Good to see you back safe and sound.
Oh, I see the tattoo.
Displeased. I can tell. See, normally, when you abandon your crew to be taken by the police, you're not expecting to see them again.
Maybe I could facilitate this reunion. Now, about those advocates.
Ah, yes.
By the way, I'm like... Montoya pointed this out, but I think they used at least part of Meyer's head scan to create this character. So my first thought is, CIG, why didn't you just hire Meyer to be the voice actor? If you're going to do that.
Authorization codes. These were not easy to come by. But well worth the trouble.
Codes? You traded me for damn access codes?
We see that later, but and we'll skip this a little bit further here. This is typical action movie plot where she feels bad about abandoning her, and they get into chase, working together. I'm just gonna skip through a lot of this because a lot of this is banter and stuff. A lot of this is actions. A lot of this doesn't really fit into lore. I do like this part though.
Never mind, I got it.
That's hilarious and awesome. And then this.
Off the ground.
Bonk.
Better get us real high real fast before that ballista does it for us.
Star Wars reference, 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 Star Wars reference.
You got it handled? 50-50? Don't, Maddie.
Also, that is definitely a crashed jump gate of some kind.
You good?
Star Wars reference, Star Wars reference, Star Wars reference. Thing you understand about Alex Dugan. Alex Dugan is a maniac. She is 100% total mad pilot. She loves doing dangerous stuff like that. All of the stories talk about it like that. She is absolutely nuts when it comes to.
some moves. Dugan?
This is why she needed the codes. People are asking where Maz was. Maz apparently was captured. Now, let's do a quick recap. I'm not going to do a huge recap, but like I said, they took a job from what turned out to be an undercover advocacy agent to break into the Bering Laser Labs. That ended badly and put them on the Empire's Most Wanted list, something they didn't want to be on. So I'm assuming that Maz was captured by a bounty hunter or by an advocacy agent, and Alex was able to retrieve Maz, but wasn't able to get the codes to unseal the stasis chamber that Maz was in. So that's what this whole was about, was trying to get advocacy codes. Specifically, she says advocacy, so I'm assuming the advocacy caught him. Banu don't have a gender. It's complicated. So they don't even have concept of gender. So Banu caught advocacy caught Maz, and so that's why she needed the codes, was to get him out of this case.
Got it, Maz.
And there's Maz Doolin, one of the best hackers in the Star Citizen lore.
There's no way the Deacon's caught up that fast.
Alex. Been a long time.
Sorry, Liege. I heard you were dead.
Never better. Got a message this morning from an old acquaintance. You will never guess who.
I have a couple of ideas.
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. Come on, Seiji.
Dugan, I didn't know you were gonna spring me from the Deacons.
Yeah, well, to be honest, neither did I. Get in the turret. Give it a 10 count and then unleash hell. Hang in there, Mass, just a little while longer.
Narrative convenience for escape, but that's pretty good. So overall, I will say it's pretty cool. Someone was asking about where you could find the original stories of this. The original story of this is called, I want to say On the Run. There's no video of it. It's a written lore story. If you look up Alex Dugan, you should be able to find the story on, just Google her name. You should probably find it on there. But you can also check it out on the YouTube, where I have done the recap of it on a video. So if you like it in videos, I have a recap there. So overall, I say it's pretty good. It's a fairly decent little ship commercial. I like stories of Alex Dugan in the universe. Things could be tightened up here and there, but I want more of stuff like this, CIG. Let me put it that way. I like more stuff like this, please. So, hope you guys enjoy this. If you did this, hit that like button. Remember to subscribe. We're getting close to 8,000 subscribers, which is nuts. Comment down below, discuss, ask questions. I'll be able to answer that for you. And remember, ex Historia ad Astra. And that's the end of the recording. Sorry, now I'll answer some of your questions. Cool, can we have dinosaur toys in the cockpits? Yeah. Thank you so much, Warhouse Bard, for that, giving that sub to Bad Swede. Now I finally talked to you guys. I told you guys I wasn't going to talk to you for a bit. So we're getting the band back together? Yeah, basically. This is the first in-engine Banu. Yeah, it's true. It is probably the first engine Banu. So Banu in 313? I don't know about that. Outrunners would make a great title for it. Yeah, that'd be a good one. What's a core bank? So the central core bank is the one that issues all UEC. The UEE core bank is the it's kind of like the Treasury, the UEE Treasury. Kellogg Yeah, possibly Kellogg. It could also be one of the Lear planets because, well, no, it's hard to tell. There's no references to the gang that she was referencing, and that we saw. So. Bird wives, yeah. Behave, yeah. Bennu 420. Yes, Bennu 420. Do I think the Argo Mole will be able to land in the exterior landing pad of that Pioneer? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, Target. So considering it knocked her off her feet. Will the QED shake up ships like this? And once the force imparted to relative to QT speed, the moment of interdiction, because that would make it hilarious interdicting with long distance QT. Yeah, because you'd just ended up being splatter when you did that. There's probably gonna be some force, but it won't be. It'll be cinematic force and that kind of stuff. In the files I mentioned, Kellogg Jump Gate and Kellogg 5 looks similar to the lore description. Right paste on the window, yeah. Hey, Gid Polaris. This is JJ of Right. It's fine. It was fine. Like, y'all, I'm gonna lay this out on you. If you don't enjoy that kind of dialogue or that kind of storytelling, you're probably not gonna like Squadron 42. It's not the same people who wrote that are the same people who wrote Squadron 42. I think they probably changed. The thing was, I don't think they would have changed Alex if the hair tech was not delayed. I think they would have still changed Alex. They probably would have tried to improve the hair technology a little bit, but we'll see. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't paying attention to chat for those guys who came in later because I was we're doing kind of just a breakdown analysis videos of these things. So, do I think Alex and Duck will get a follow up when the Banu enter the game or something like that? I would probably. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw if this was not the last we saw of Alex Dugan, Maz Hulan, and. Oh, gosh, what's her name? Maddie Zier, I think is her name. Maddie Zen. That's fine. The sticking stuff in your pants is a fine trope, and the gritting teeth is a way of showing emotion in a way that is realistic, but also like cinematic. So it's fine. The story was fine. The scenes were fine. I had some issues. Like the whole stormtrooper aim thing is a little off because they're running in a straight line. And it was overkill because they were like flipping their hands behind their head and shooting and killing people without looking, while this group of supposedly professional or semi-professional criminals couldn't literally hit two women running in a straight line in front of them, and like when they had them pinned, like what? Make it a little bit more believable. That kind of makes you kind of go, wait, what? Yeah, and I'm a big fan of lore stories and that kind of stuff. So the more lore, the more stories, that kind of stuff that comes into the universe and is being told through visual story is fine. Besides, it's also pretty obvious they were not using they weren't doing custom made videos. They were doing they were using the assets that are in game right now to make most of that, which is good, which is pretty cool. Stormtrooper running makes some shooting sense. The server was running slow, yeah. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I like the story of the video simply because it's solid. It's not Lord of the Rings, but it's a good enough action short that was fairly entertaining. It makes me want to hear more about Alex Dugan and how the fuck did Maz end up in that thing and who Maz is and Maddie. You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of Pirates of the Caribbean. That's what that style makes me think of. It's obvious that they took a lot of cues from that kind of movie. With Maddie doing the double cross, triple cross, all these kind of like what side's who gonna be on kind of thing. Every single bit of the story was exposed through action. There was something going on. Somebody was shooting somebody. Somebody was getting something done. There was no exposition dumps. All of the witty dialogue was done through movement. There is no wasted time, which is one of the reasons why I think that scene where they're running, that portion where they're running, it's wasted time. It's like, why is the fucking tighten it up? Make them be moving and dipping and dodging, where like bullet whizzes by them as they're moving their heads around and stuff like that. Or like sliding over debris as they're like trying to get bullets between them and the other side. That's the key. I'll be honest, I'd watch Pirates of the Caribbean in space, yeah. Gritting our teeth was fine. The gritting of the teeth, I think, was fine. The gritting the teeth makes sense in the sense of trying to show emotion. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Q-Pan, that's the only thing that bothered me was the not zigging and zagging. It was a good story. I like the new refineries in 312. They nailed it, like the turrets, yeah. If the short is indicative of their single-player game, we're in trouble. It was beyond childish. Bro, it's a video game. I wouldn't expect high art from Squadron. Did you play Wing Commander games, Void? If you haven't played Wing Commander games, that is the level of storytelling and pacing I expect from Squadron 42, with some mystery and intrigue tossed in there for good measure. But that's what the game is, guys. It's an action movie. Cool, Void. Then you're probably not gonna like Squadron 42. Sorry. People are expecting multi-million-dollar production values is good enough. It was a fun little video meant as a sales piece where they were flexing their creativity a little bit. The animation team was. Will we see Alex in game? Possibly. I wouldn't be surprised if she's a mission giver at some point. She does have a lore presence, and almost all of the people in the lore that are written in lore stories, like Kid Crimson, are supposed to be in the universe. So, possibly. Needs more birdship, yeah. And Void, I like The Mandalorian. I don't know why you're shitting on Disney Star Wars. I enjoy The Mandalorian. and basically what I'm saying is that if you dislike that so much that you think that the writing is horrible and everything else is bad, I've heard some people like LARP on about, SJW this and that, then, bro, you're not going to like the game. Cool, bro. Void, you're complaining like I care. Like, cool. You're not going to like Star Citizen then, or Squadron 42. If you're expecting some gritty noir drama where it was taking itself super seriously, if you're expecting like a Zack Snyder film, you're coming to the wrong in video game form. You're coming to the wrong game. Why didn't we see the Talon video? CIG missed out on that cross promotion. I know, right? Would love for CIG to explore more mediums for storytelling, especially while the game is in development. Cinematic shorts, comic book novels. Yeah, exactly, Starjump. How's it going, Starjump, by the way? Like the videos. Oh, Soulcar, thank you so much for the 14 months. So, INS Jericho. So, if you honk loud enough, it explodes. Yes, the walls of Jericho. I think it's an interesting name for it because you're really the XenoThreat are borderline religious fanatics, so it makes sense that they'd be attacking a place called Jericho. I'm looking at some of those mountains in game. We have some of those mountains in game on those styles of mountains you can find on Microtech. You can find some of those in Hurston. I've driven through those before in 311. The Perseus video, yeah. Nice, Starjump. Nice. So you guys don't know, Starjump's hanging out in the YouTube chat. He's the guy who did the one that everybody likes, the Drake cinematic that he released on Drake Day for IAE. He's done a bunch of the cinematics and stuff like that for Star Citizen using various ships and such. So Blizzard does the same thing with Overwatch. Yeah. What was the group that Alex encountered at the end? The Deacons. Oh no. We don't know who that was. That was let me see the name of it. It's run by an outlaw who you meet. Sorlige was his name. Sorlige is he's a kind of an outlaw group. I'm assuming that Maddie Zen is kind of like she kind of is being portrayed as like a Jack Sparrow character, where she has some loyalties, but most of her loyalty is to her pocketbook and to herself. So, she intentionally contacted Sorlige, because there's actually a moment in the first video where she contacts somebody, and she's contacting Sorlige to let them know that this is where Alex is, maybe even tracking where they are. So. Oh, it's in the YouTube chat. Their side piece. So I'm streaming both YouTube and Twitch. So, have I looked into the refineries yet? I have. They're pretty cool. They're one of my favorite aspects of the latest patch. At least when we last saw them for the PTU patch. Hey Paul, I know you like the idea. I said that in Discord about group road trip to all the cool things in game like Jericho and Crash Jab and such. Yeah, at some point. How much will that video cost, Alex? A lot. So she has this this new engine called Plot. The Plot engine it runs on nothing, runs on fumes forever. Not under the oceans. There are some civilizations which are more around, not under the oceans, but more on top of the oceans. How much is that upgrade? More than you're going to cost. By the way, for those of you guys who are hanging out watching us, !December if you guys want to get in on our giveaway, courtesy of CIG. Thank you, CIG, of a Mercury Star Runner LTI game package. If you guys want to do that, !December in chat for Twitch. And then I will copy and paste that into YouTube as well. There you go. Don't speak Russian. Don't read Cyrillic there, buddy. Like Waterworld, kind of, yeah. One of the Fair Chance worlds is only has land in the North and South poles, or maybe even only one of the poles has land, but it's being settled by humans. Green is a good example of a water world that has mostly just an archipelago of islands, but it's mostly water. There's a couple of planets like that. Actually, there's probably more of those types of planets than there are Earth-like planets. Star Citizen? Yes, Star Citizen. We're sitting in Star Citizen. This it's kind of like a talk show. We're talking about Star Citizen. We talk about Star Citizen lore and the game itself. There's the link for you there, Grim. When am I going to roll the winner? If you click on the link, it actually has an end date. So 7 days left. So on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve. Yes, 312 is live. So if there's a guy who missed it, 312 is now currently live. For everybody. Out in the wild. OGT, thanks so much for that 18 months, man. Question, do I think Squadron 42 beta will be next year? There will be no Squadron 42 beta. I love all of my friends who do YouTube videos for Star Citizen, but I feel like a lot of them are giving the impression that there will be a player-controlled beta, and there's no indication that that's the case right now. I think that Squadron 42 will enter beta next year? Probably. But beta for something like Squadron 42 is going to take much, much longer than just a couple of months, because beta is when they got everything assembled and put together, and beta is when they decide, what time of day is this going to take place? How does this cinematic work? Is this gameplay fun? What do we cut? What do we keep in? Plus bug fixing and lots of other issues like that. So a game like Squadron 42 is probably going to have an extended beta period of at least 6 months, if not a year, for them to work out all the problems. So if Squadron 42 enters beta tomorrow, it would come into full release for us to play it until the end of next year, at the earliest. Question, slightly off topic from the cinematic. Does the Kraken have any lore connections other than the new Drake CEO approves of its construction? That's about it. That's its main focus, is that it's the new Drake CEO created the Kraken more as a kind of a mea culpa, as an attempt to try to improve the company's image. Do you know if they fixed the having multiple ships show up on kiosk? And is there a fix? I don't know if that's the case or not. Escape Thunton, maybe because you own a ship that isn't flyable yet, they give you loaners. Yeah, that is true. Sometimes you'll have multiple ships if you have a loaner, but if you see, otherwise it shouldn't show up in multiples. Probably only an internal beta too. Yeah, it's not going to be a public beta. They keep changing the general stuff. They keep gave up impact tech. They then have to shove that into Squadron 42. Us, not changing up the general stuff. They just gave us impact tech. Here's the secret: anything that's added to Star Citizen's already in Squadron 42. CIG releases any tech that they've made that's going to make it into Squadron, first to Squadron, then to Star Citizen. I think the only exception to that rule was planetary tech, and even then, I think it was probably the same time. I need to quit my job and download now. Yes, Walk. That's what you need to do. I hope they change sounds up a bit. That was probably my biggest letdowns with the Talon, is that the Talon's supposed to have this iconic sound when it dives, or just period, and it doesn't. It sounds really generic, like a light version of the Prowler, which is fine if they didn't hype up this lore of the sound being iconic in their own brochures. What happened to November's monthly report? Probably not coming out until January. Or it'll come out next week. One of the two. What's the XenoThreat I keep hearing about? Hey, Platinum. So, we kind of already went over it, but I'll go over it one more time since we're getting more people coming in towards the end of the stream anyways. So, for those of you who missed the beginning, let me basically let you know that they'll give you the quick and dirty version. XenoThreat is a organization that is headquartered out of Ruin Station in Pyro. They're really the de facto rulers of Pyro. They hate the UEE. They're ultra xenophobic fascists, and their leaders are all ex-UEE military. So they have military training, access to equipment, or at least seem to have access to equipment, to military equipment. They hate the UEE, and they're on the doorstep of Stanton. So the message that we get, the people of Stanton messages, that message is from XenoThreat. Everyone knows because of data mining that they're going to be attacking Stanton, and INS Jericho is the station where it's all going to go down. At least I theorize it's going to be the one that it all goes down. So we could go over the 312 trailer. There's really not much in the 312 trailer that we haven't already talked about, but let's go. Pause the music. All right, let me reverse that because you could hear the very beginning. Hold on.
Attention, people of Stanton. Attention, people of Stanton.
There we go. Discover new ships. Handheld tractor beams. Improved mining UI, which is good. Fire decks. Assault on Stanton. Playable now. basically, that message you heard, people Stanton, plus the whole be ready. XenoThreat's coming, guys. It's coming. Sounds sweet? Yeah. So this is the second event patch. Yeah, this is the second event patch. It seems we only know that message was from Xeno because of event mining. How would we know about this in game? You wouldn't really. We'll find out. You'll find out about it in game. I know why and how because of those same data mines, but you'll find out. There'll be an in fiction way of you finding out. So I'm gonna make a video about it, but you'll find out. You'll see how it happens. Xena is coming. Yeah, Xena is coming. XenoThreat. In that gunfight, you can take cover. It's just not perfect. Trust me, I played the patches where they actually had cover system where you would snap to cover and stuff like that. It was garbage. Holy fuck, was it hard. It just bad. The sound of the pilot going "ree" when he's diving, yeah. I'm currently on Hurston. Where can I find the gold medums in the wild? I don't know. Grim. Any XenoThreat attacks recorded in Tavaran reservations or settlements? Not that we know of, no. You can cower behind stuff. Perfectly capable of cowering behind stuff. In game with a crouch. Yes, I'll look. Both. All right, y'all. I'm going to call it a night. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out with us here tonight at the Astropub. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this, please consider hitting that follow button. If you're on Twitch, if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. We're kind of trying to grow the channel a little bit more. We have a Discord, which I'll leave for those of you watching this on YouTube. I'll put it down in the description for you guys to check out as well, to join the discussions and continue the talks. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Love your faces. Like I say every time, hope to see you guys again soon. But if I don't, hope to see you someday in the black. And remember, ex Astoria ad Astra. Later, y'all.